Good day, everyone. Welcome to Eleanor's Elite Radio, and I am your host, Eleanor. Today's show is going to be a very empowering one. I am lucky to have on Miss Marsha CENICEROS. Hi, Marsha. Welcome.
Hi, Eleanor. Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much, Marsha. It's lovely to have you here today. I know you're on the West Coast this morning, and I know it's early, so I'm grateful that you were able to call this early. Thank you so much. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I have my sister here from New York that came out last night, so we're going to spend 2 weeks together.
Oh, how lovely. Marsha, first of all, tell everyone the titles of your books and where they can purchase them. I know they're available on Amazon, right?
Yes,
and
available on Amazon. And if you just go on the internet and put in my name, you'll find out the many other stores they're available at. I have my first book is Sonana 999. That was published in 2015, and that's a sci-fi, and it's full of adventure. The book really rocks. It's dazzling. And then I have Precedence. Bondage is Part of the Game. That's another sci-fi, and that's an amazing book also. I have Flames of Torment. That was in 2007. That's a literature book. And I have God Answered Me. This is based on true stories of my life. It's a very spiritual read. And then July 7th, I have a release of God Answered Me, Chapter 1.
Okay.
And that goes more in depth about the darkest parts of my life and child abuse, and a lot like Ancestry.com, what came before.
Well, you know, I was honored to read your first chapter, and I was floored. And I guess I'm going to ask the typical questions first, and then perhaps I hope we can get into it a little bit more. How did you find the passion to write? I mean, if I were to have gone through a day of what you or your siblings went through, I'm sure most of us in the United States of America couldn't have even prospered or be as successful as you are, or that you have turned out to be. Could you possibly tell my listeners how you overcame the traumas you suffered?
Well, the trauma that we went through, it was amazing. It was terrific. Back when I was 40 years old, all of these things started coming back to me that happened in our lives. When I hit my 50s, it became really irritating. And this is something that I felt that I had to do, that I had to get out, that I had to tell the world about, because child abuse has to stop. Back in 1998 is when I actually started taking my writing seriously, and I didn't go into the real life of what we lived. But as I aged, it got more and more empowering that I had to do this.
You felt that it was your duty to do it, and I understand that because I too am a child advocate, and I too am a big advocate for child abuse. Now, I did read Chapter 1, and I must say I couldn't put it down. I do have a few questions. Who in your house were you the closest to? It seems like your sister Pamela and your sister Cynthia, really. Could you tell me who you were close to? Because it was hard when I was reading it to understand who you had. Like, I know who you had a relationship with, and I'm only on Chapter 1, but I want to hear your opinion on that.
Pamela, my oldest sister, I was closer to her for the reason that she was more like a mother to us.
Right.
We were always left with her. She's the one who took care of us when my parents were not around. My sister Cindy, she's only 2 years from me, and we were together also. And we played outside a lot together. With Pam, I didn't. Pam was just more of a caretaker.
Right.
And it wasn't until I got older that me and Pam had more of a bonding of a relationship where she shared a lot more of her life with me.
Right. Now, as I was reading, all the things that you went through as a young girl, it was almost like, when you had gotten into middle school and high school, like I was in my mind, I was saying to myself, like, is she already married and out of, your age should have been like 35. And when I was reading the story, you were just entering middle school, it was that phenomenal, the read. Did you ever have any thoughts? I'm just going to say truthful because I'm a very truthful, honest person. But did you ever have any thoughts about getting rid of your father? Like, did you have any outlets to get rid of him?
Me, myself, no. My mother, yes. And what she did, she got my brothers together one morning when we were sitting down at breakfast, and she was talking to them because the night before there was a huge, massive fight, and he destroyed a lot of my brother's personal items. Well, what happened is that they started discussing on how to kill him, how to get rid of him without getting caught. And so she did talk one of my brothers into doing that.
Right, I read that.
When it came down to it,
he couldn't.
He became really weak and he couldn't go through with it.
Yeah.
Myself, no.
Yeah.
I was the type of person that accepted what was.
Now, did you ever think perhaps about getting out of there and running away? Or you probably, at that age, didn't really have the resources to get out of there?
Well, many times I did, yes. I even, when I believe I was 13 years old, I hitchhiked all the way to Burbank.
Wow.
And I watched The Price is Right. And then I was hitchhiking back, and I ended up getting arrested.
Wow.
Yeah, I did a lot of things that I shouldn't have done. And yes, I wanted to leave at the age of 15. I remember that day when I walked out of the house. I said, when I have children, I'm never, ever going to raise them the way that I was raised.
Right. In chapter 1, I see how the outdoors seem to be your savior. Was it because no one had access to control you outside, or was it due to the beauty that lies outdoors, the wind, the trees, the flowers? I'd like to quote a paragraph from your book. As a child, treated with resentment, I didn't understand it then, as children always want to feel a closeness with their parents, absolute love, human love, instead of that carnivorous urge that existed outside the home. Waking up to scent of flowers blowing from a refreshing breeze, running in the grass, singing to the trees, and undeniable moments of God's hand. Was this your time that nobody could bother you and touch you or yell at you or try to control you, is when you were outside?
Yes, that was the most peaceful moments of my life. And at that time, there was a lot of feelings that I felt just by being outside and staring up at the sky.
Yeah.
I mean, even the leaves on the tree, I would stand there and just stare at them and just couldn't believe how beautiful that they were.
So
that was my peaceful moments.
That was your peaceful moments. Now, can we talk about your mom, or is that kind of off top? You don't like...
No, we can. That's
okay.
Perfectly fine.
When your mother met that military man on the bus going to the doctor's office with Pam as a little baby, do you think when she got off that bus and saw this man, how he was loved by his family, do you think it made her feel so aware of the dysfunctionality of her own life that she could never love this man's family? Like, that she could never love like this man's family loved him. The military gentleman is what I'm talking about.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's why she got back on the bus.
Yes.
Wow.
I honestly believe that's what happened.
And she never had a moment of clarity. She never had a moment of saying, oh my God, Marsha, I love you, but, due to all the abuse I have. Because, I'm sure she had to realize, unless it was just so ingrained, the years of abuse she had suffered from her husband and possibly, even as a child, I don't know, that made her just so conditioned to not love.
Yes, that's what happened. Her own life as a child was very abusive. And then when she married my father, he was raised in a family also that was quite abusive. And so what happened is that this just carried on. She was having a child almost every year, every 2 years, because he had done so many things in his life that put him in prison and put him in jail. I mean, it was just horrific, and she was damaged to begin with. I hate to say that, but that's what happened. And there was never one time that they said, "I love you."
Right. I can't imagine that, because I come from a very close-knit family, and my family lived with me until they passed away, and I lived with them when I was a young married woman. I mean, that's what we did. Everybody just kind of conglomerated together and supported each other and loved each other no matter what. So it's very difficult to read what I read last night. It was very upsetting. But the good thing is, let's talk about the other side. The other side is how successful you are, and what a loving, wonderful person you've turned out to be. I can tell by all your posts and your social media. I follow you through all your social media, and you're such a loving, caring person. So tell us all the wonderful things that have happened to you by writing, and through writing, I should say.
Well, it's changed my life. I mean, I didn't have a lot of self-esteem back in 1998 when I began to take my writing more serious, and then all of a sudden somebody would come up and say, "Hey, did you write this?" And I said, "Yes." They said, "It's amazing." And I did a lot of writing for the churches, and I did a lot of writing for when people passed away. They would come and ask me, "Can you write a poem for my child?"
Right.
Or my sister. And I just got more and more into it. The very first book that I read that changed my life was Green Eggs and Ham.
Yeah.
And I was in the first grade.
I read that last night. I loved it.
Yeah. That I couldn't believe it. I read that book 100 times. And I kept on writing and kept on writing. And I would go back and read my writing. And I said, "Oh my God, I wrote this. I really did." And it's just ingrained in me. It's just something I have to do. I love it.
That's really just so wonderful. Now, do you have any, like, all I read was chapter 1. So when is chapter 2 going to come out?
Chapter 2 is probably going to come out in about 3 to 4 months. Okay,
so basically, because of the content, you have to really take a 3 to 4 month break and kind of ponder over it, and, I would imagine have to, there's a word I'm trying to think of. I can't, it's not coming to my mind, but is that why you wait so long to write it, is because of the content and the stress and anxiety you have while writing it?
That's part of the reason. Yes, and the other part of the reason is that I have a husband who's a disabled veteran. Right. And I have 13 grandchildren.
Wowee.
So I try to spread my love around.
I bet you do, darling. 13 grandchildren. How wonderful. I just had my first grandchild, almost 2 years ago in August. So this is my first grandbaby. I can't imagine 13 little guys running around. It must be wonderful. You must totally just so love that and fill their hearts with such love and hope.
Yes, I do. It's just, in fact, I had to teach myself, with all this negative that I grew up with, I had to teach myself how to love.
Marsha, let me ask you, can you give me updates on your immediate family now? Has your mother passed?
No, my mother, she's in a home. She doesn't remember who I am.
Right.
And she's in pretty bad health, off and on. So I don't expect her to have a very long life.
How old is she? Can I ask how old she is?
Yes, she's 86 now.
Okay, and your dad, what about him?
He's already passed. He was 70 when he passed.
And how about your brothers?
I'm sorry?
Your brothers? Your two. I'm so sorry. Your two brothers.
Okay. I have 6 brothers.
Oh, 6.
One of my brothers, he passed back in 2012. Ron passed in 1995. And Patricia, my youngest sister, she passed in 1982.
Yes, that's what I read yesterday in chapter 1. I wasn't sure about your brothers, though. I didn't know.